Hey there, welcome back to a Transformed Life podcast. I am grateful you are joining me today for another delicious episode. Let me know how you enjoyed the January 2026 series. It was all about spanking, so 5 episodes about spanking. If you have not listened to any of them, please go back and listen to at least one of them. Maybe the one about Christians ending spanking. That's a really good episode. It will definitely awaken and enlighten you on so many things that Christians say about spanking that aren't really factual and also not applicable. So that is my little plug for that. If you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to this channel. It really means the world to me. I receive that and helps get this podcast and this show into more listeners' ears and souls. If you're listening to this on any other platform, Spotify or Apple, please leave me a 5-star review. That would be greatly appreciated as well. So for the first episode of February 2026, we're going to talk about another hot topic. This is really geared to parents and children. With this particular one, I will maybe do a separate episode for adults on this topic, as that is also needed. This came up in a session with a client, and I really wanted to share this on the podcast as well. And it's all about ADHD and specifically children for the focus of this episode. What I want you to know is ADHD isn't the problem. The environment is. And what people are often calling a disorder, it's really a mismatch. And the other thing I want you to remember is that ADHD and ADD isn't an Adderall or medication deficiency. It is a deficiency in nature, nurture, and honoring our children's autonomy. The first thing I want to share with you is that children are not supposed to sit for 8 hours, 6 hours, 4 hours, even 2 hours a day. Children, biologically, were created and built for open-ended play, exploration, adventure, movement, exploring where this trail goes and following it, open-ended play, experiencing what nature is. And that's really what I love about got this fly around me. That's really what I love about, the Waldorf, unschooling, Montessori, wild schooling. There's so many different names for it, but really giving children the opportunity to be in nature. And the structure is, this is an open field. This is, the forest. These are things to explore of what can we build with sticks and leaves? And when that happens, focus doesn't become the issue. 6-year-olds, 10-year-olds aren't supposed to be quote unquote focusing on a book work, sitting in a desk in an artificial environment in a building that resembles a prison, and you get 10 minutes of recess per day. Oh, no, our children's bodies were designed to move, to run, to jump and play, to squat, not to be sitting. Of course, they're not going to focus. And so when we say he, she can't focus, it's this, we can't say that because it's the system that's the problem. And so today we're talking all about why ADHD and ADD usually isn't the problem, and what parents can do that actually can help your children. So the first thing is we're going to reframe. We're going to stop pathologizing childhood. Kids are designed for movement, novelty, play, curiosity, connection, sensory input. And modern day society is stillness, not in a good way. It's sit still in your desk, and if you move, you're a bad child. It's not stillness versus like in a meditative state. It's compliance, it's output, transitions, it's grades, it's constant instruction. It's very artificial heat, artificial cold. And then many ADHD behaviors are predictable responses to all of these things. Too much sitting, too little outdoor time and free play, free exploration, too little autonomy and choices, too much screen stimulation. What we have, laptops and computers in schools, even, public homeschooling, quote unquote homeschooling, they send, laptops and devices home with the kids. Too many demands without regulation support. And so we have built a world hostile to childhood. And then we diagnose the child with these, made up things of, oh, they can't focus. Oh, she has control issues. She's 7. Well, she's going to have quote unquote control issues because he or she is not, a female problem. He or she isn't being, their autonomy isn't being allowed to do what they were created to do. To have that movement, to have that novelty, to just explore, whether it's, inside the home, outside in nature, a playground with other kids, maybe it's with, uh, painting, drawing instruments, watercolors, coloring. Free-ended, open-ended play is paramount to healthy children without putting them on medication because their, little Johnny isn't sitting still and can't focus. Well, we have to remember that the problem isn't the problem. It's the result. What is it the result of? Well, sitting in a prison-like environment all day long is pretty close to that. And so focus isn't broken. It's context dependent. They can focus forever on what's meaningful. Legos, art, animals, nature, building forts, games, exploring. Maybe it's baking. Maybe it's going on a walk and seeing where the trail goes. Maybe it's scrambling up a hill. Maybe it's I really liked using with my son the wooden blocks and like stacking the wooden blocks and seeing they have like different shapes on them. So it's more than just wooden blocks, but it's to see how the rocks can go on different ones and with all different shapes and sizes and edges. And that's what children need. That's what they're deficient in. They're not receiving opportunities to have that experience. And so attention isn't missing. It's selective and embodied. We have to keep coming back. Children were not supposed to have undue attention in a environment that is counter biologically aligned. So they're not supposed to be, attending, their attention on, school books for 8 hours a day with 10 minutes of recess. That is grossly misaligned. So the question we really need to be asking ourselves is, what conditions will help my child's nervous system access focus? Because children can focus. They focus on what's, happening when they're, doing open-ended play when they're coloring. When they get done with coloring, are you going to keep forcing them to color for another 7 hours? No. They might want to play with Legos. They might want to play with building blocks, maybe Lincoln Logs. I'm dating myself with that reference. Maybe they want to if they're old enough, they want to experiment with baking, measuring cups. That's how they learn math. So, if we say a child can't focus or they don't have attention, we need to look at where they do have attention and see that, most of this is really showing up in a adverse environment, institutional learning, school environments, and see how we can bring more in biological, child-led, child-honoring ways to help children focus. Not even help them focus, allow them to focus where they are biologically wired to focus. And so we can't demand focus from a dysregulated body. Fidgeting and movement are often regulation, not bad behavior, or, oh, we need to put them on, medication because they're fidgeting and moving. Their bodies are supposed to move. They're supposed to be squatting. They're not supposed to be sitting in chairs that are bad for their entire body and spine and their mental health. Connection first, correction second, and even correction in the lens of, we're going to let you have, the next hour outside doing whatever you want within, the safe perimeters of, like, we're going to go explore this forest. We're going to go explore this farm. And they can focus on that. So usually focus is just hyper focused, no pun intended, on the child, not focusing in an institutional setting, not really in everyday situations. And when it happens in everyday situations, it typically is going to come from a dysregulated body. Maybe they're going through upheaval at home due to, their parents or other situations. Maybe there's trauma involved. Again, I come back to this quote: the problem isn't the problem, it's the result. And what is it the result of? We have to look underneath the hood of what is happening inside the car, inside our child's system, if we really want to help them, instead of just slapping uh, meds on them. So we're not forcing focus, we're building the conditions where focus becomes possible. So here are, really good things four of them to kind of keep in mind. So the big three is what I call it. One is sleep, consistent bedtimes and wake up times, morning sunlight, outside early, have their eyes really have that sunlight first thing, no sunglasses. Reduce or eliminate screens before bed. Eliminate screens as much as possible if they are a part of your parenting. Movement, daily, sweaty play, open-ended. Here's the next hour for you to do whatever in the backyard, in the forest, on a farm, in a contained area at the playground. Movement before school and before homework. Heavy work, pushing, pulling, carrying, climbing. This is why, like, being on a farm is just amazing for children to learn all of these, body regulation techniques of, like, they can push, they can pull, they can carry, they can climb. Food is really important to, building connections where focus becomes possible, giving them high protein breakfast. Eggs is, a really good staple. Really stable snacks, avoid blood sugar crashes. And then always, pair carbs with protein fat. We got to have, I always call it, PFC, protein, fat, carbs. And then if your kid is underslept, undermoved, and on a blood sugar roller coaster, of course, like, are we going to call that ADHD? No, we need to call it for what it is. They did not have their proper mind, body, spirit hygiene for that day, maybe that week, maybe that month. And this is a call to realign your parenting, to bring that into focus, pun intended on that one, and align, their external so they can have an internal response of, like, okay, I need to focus here. I'm being asked to focus at this, in school. So I'm going to set up their environment with movement, with food, protein, with sleep, with, little to no screen time. And obviously with, connection with their parents. Some kids need their body involved to access their brain. So maybe they, and this is why I love child-led learning. Some learn by books, some learn by doing. Some learn, through the body. You can learn measurements when baking or cooking. Math isn't always relegated to books. or science isn't always relegated to books. It's, experiments. It's, being out in nature. It's working with your hands. And so giving your children the opportunity to learn and experience things from many different vantage points, just not books. Book is not the only way to learn. It's one way. It's not the only way. So little kids, you can do 5 to 8 minutes on, 2 minutes off. Elementary school age, 10 to 15, 3 to 5 minutes off. Older, um, 20 to 25 off for these following exercises, ideas like wall push-ups, bear crawls, jumping jacks, and then carrying something heavy to another room. Maybe it's a bag of books, maybe it's a jug of milk, maybe it's the laundry basket. And these are all really good ways to get your kids to, self-regulate and come back into their body and uh, learn how to focus on those tasks, because that's how we're going to bring focus into other areas of our life. And remember, like, we're training stability and sustainability, not obedience. And then here's a 60-second reset. Phew. Shoo, shoo. Excuse me. You could do hand on heart and belly and 3 slow breaths, box breathing, 4 to 5 seconds in to breathe, 4 to 5 seconds out, hold. That could be really helpful. Blow out candles, long exhales ×5, cold water on wrist, splash face with cold water, butterfly tap. So if you're watching me on YouTube, it's just you cross your arms and you tap left, right, and that can really reset the nervous system, super helpful. And then, remind your children, your brain isn't bad. Your body is simply overloaded. Let's reset. That's very honoring to everyone's nervous system, including yours. So the next thing is executive function supports the external brain. A checklist, morning, night, a micro habit per week, then alarms, sticky notes, color folders. That could help with focus if they're, older teenagers, giving all of them ways to help their function in focus and attention. And these are just different tools that you can use without labeling them that they have some kind of, deficiency, they have something wrong with them. If the world demands executive function, we give them tools and we don't shame them. And then the next one is protect identity. And this is the heart. What would help your brain focus right now? I see you're having a hard time not being a hard, difficult kid. Let's change this approach. Here's an identity line. When a child is constantly corrected for being a child, they don't learn focus, they learn self-doubt. When a child is constantly being corrected for being a child, they don't learn focus, they learn self-doubt. And then system critique. What we reward is not health. We reward stillness over creativity. We confuse compliance with regulation. And we ask children to ignore biology and then label their behavior, label that cost as pathology. And it's just simply misaligned in every which way when it's their biology to live in a certain way. And that is so important for raising healthy children and healthy adults. And when, an entire generation is being labeled ADHD, ADD, we must ask, who profits from this story? So the global ADHD market estimated around over 14 billion in 2023. ADHD therapeutics market is projected to reach 45 billion by 2034. And the US ADHD market estimated around over almost 10.5 billion in 2024. That is staggering statistics. So different reports, define market differently. And the point is, it's a massive growing financial machine profiting off of kids' dysregulation, profiting off of kids' trauma, profiting off of a system that they're not supposed to even be sitting with in the first place. So it's really, really important that we bring back our, autonomy to our kids and give them the environment in whatever capacity that we are able to, the ability, the experience to have the chance to learn in a child honoring way instead of forcing them to sit at a desk. It just is not body honoring. The same for adults. Adults were not supposed to be sitting in desk and chairs as well. And I think that's, why I'm so passionate, with natural supports, because the goal isn't just symptom management. We're not just going to, manage this quote unquote lack of focus when it's not even a lack of focus. That's what the system wants you to label it as, because children can focus on open ended play just fine. It's changing conditions. Some families choose medication, and that's their choice for that. And, I'm not anti anyone, I'm pro child. And we have to come back to how they got diagnosed, what's really going on in the nuclear family, in their family environment, what sudden changes have they had, and just back to their biological stance. Are they, again, at the end of the day, children are not supposed to be sitting in institutions, 5 days a week, hours on end. That's just, of course, they're going to have quote unquote problems. And so, if, my point is this, we don't make the child the sole problem. If your child has extreme anxiety, sleep issues, school refusal, intense meltdowns, then receive, the support that you need. What I really want you to remember is that your child is not broken. They're built for life, and we build that a day at a time. And let's, stop diagnosing childhood as, they need a prescription when it's simply they aren't in an environment that supports their autonomy. And so, the pharmaceutical system is profiting off of children in a system that is not honoring to begin with. And that's just such a damn shame. What are kids designed for at the end of the day? They're designed for movement, for open-ended play, for exploration, for experience, for creativity. Most kids just don't have the opportunity to be creative. So giving them opportunities to be creative, of, giving them, um, many different play, like here's, sensory things, like here's a rice bin, here's flour. Like there are different like children's museums where they have, hands-on activities, making those mini kits for your own home use, or taking them to places where they have that. But really make a concerted effort to give your children as much time experimenting, playing, creativity. And if you're able to pull your children out of institutional schooling and into, unschooling, homeschooling, more of a, child-led honoring education system, then I really encourage you to do that. Because when we honor our children biological needs and how they're, created to be, that is how we heal our generation, and we pull out of the system that is trying to make us go into it, of like, oh, you just need this medication, they can't focus in school, and they slap on a medication. And what does that do to the child, of like, oh yeah, I take, medication for this problem, and then they focus on the problem, then they become that identity. And so we really want to mitigate that and give our children the best chance that they have, and resources and support, where we are setting them up for a successful, and when I say successful adulthood, what I mean is that they're kind, they're healing, they're regulated, They are creative, they're generous, they're grateful, they're helpful, not contracted individuals who are scared, who are living in lack, who have, unraveling, decades of trauma. Let's give them a firm foundation now instead of having them pay for, um, therapy for the rest of their lives when they're adults. And so I really want you to rethink, this whole ADHD, ADD model of focus and attention, and rethink it, realign it, see where you can make some small adjustments in your parenting today. Have, if your children are in institutional schools today, see if you can, give yourself, okay, in a year, in 2 years, this is where I want my kids to be learning, and start working towards that, realigning your mindset. And if you need support as a parent of really, regulating your body and your nervous system, then please get in touch with me. I would love to mentor and coach you and guide you through this process and give you tools to work with your children as well. Like, this is a mind, body, spirit, holistic approach. And we work with everyone. It's not just singular. Like, I will give you tools to work with your children, and it's extremely beneficial. I really hope you enjoyed this podcast today, and please share it with a friend, a parent, a teacher. Let us all come together and really revisit and rethink. Someone who needs permission to rethink this model of, little Johnny, little Susie is just not paying attention in school. They're having issues over here. Well, it's stemming from a larger issue. And slapping a medication on top of it is just like putting a Band-Aid on and forgetting that you have something underneath of it. You got to take care of that wound. And so when we take care of that wound and we address it from a root energetic standpoint, then we can affect that focus issue, that attention issue, because they really don't have a focus problem. They can focus on other things. And they're not supposed to be focusing on one thing all day long, 5 days a week. It's just inhumane. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and I look forward to seeing you next week. I wish you a beautiful day, and yeah, if there's anything I can do to serve and support you, you know how to reach me.